Lieutenant Sarah Chen pressed her face against the cold metal of the observation deck, watching the alien ships drift through the asteroid field like predators hunting prey. The Kethvar fleet had been tracking them for 3 days now, ever since the human reconnaissance team had stumbled upon their secret mining operation in the outer rim of the Proxima system. "Rookie, get away from that window," growled Sergeant Marcus Kane, the grizzled veteran who had seen more battles than Sarah had years of life. His cybernetic left arm whirred softly as he adjusted his rifle scope. "You're making me nervous with all that fidgeting." Sarah stepped back, her heart hammering against her ribs. This was only her second mission outside Earth's solar system, and already everything had gone wrong. Their ship, the UES Defiant, had taken heavy damage during their escape from the mining facility. Now they were trapped in this asteroid field, playing a deadly game of hide-and-seek with aliens who wanted them dead. The Kethvar were not like the other species humanity had encountered during their expansion into space. While the Zelani were peaceful traders and the Mortok were honorable warriors, the Kethvar were something else entirely. They were tall, insectoid creatures with 4 arms and compound eyes that could see across multiple spectrums of light. Their technology was advanced, their ships fast, and their intentions toward humanity were clearly hostile. Captain Rodriguez stood at the center of the bridge, his weathered face showing the strain of command. Around him, the crew worked frantically to repair damaged systems while monitoring the enemy's movements. The ship's hull groaned under the stress of hiding among the floating rocks, and everyone knew they couldn't stay hidden much longer. "Sir, I'm picking up movement on the port side," called out Ensign Williams from his sensor station. 3 Kethvar scouts moving in formation about 2 kilometers out. "Can they see us?" Rodriguez asked, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "Negative, sir. The asteroid we're hiding behind is blocking their scanners, but if they move another 50 meters to starboard, we'll be exposed." Sarah watched the tactical display, her mind racing. She had studied alien warfare at the academy, spent countless hours in simulations, but nothing had prepared her for the real thing. The Kethvar ships moved with a fluid grace that seemed almost organic, their black hulls reflecting the distant starlight like oil on water. "What are our options?" Rodriguez asked his senior staff. Commander Hayes, the ship's tactical officer, shook his head grimly. "We're outgunned 3-1, sir. Our main engines are still offline, and we've only got 40% power to weapons. If we try to run, they'll cut us to pieces before we clear the asteroid field. And if we stay here, it's only a matter of time before they find us. Their scanning technology is more advanced than ours. I'd give us maybe an hour before they detect our heat signature." Sarah found herself studying the enemy ships more closely. There was something about their movement pattern that seemed familiar, something she had read about in her tactical studies. The Kethvar were known for their precision and discipline, but they were also creatures of habit. They followed established protocols religiously, which sometimes made them predictable. "Sergeant Kane," she said quietly, not wanting to interrupt the senior officer's discussion. "What's the maximum effective range of your rifle?" Kane looked at her with suspicion. "Why do you want to know, rookie?" "Just curious about our defensive capabilities." "Standard plasma rifle has an effective range of about 800 meters in vacuum," he replied. "Though I've made shots at twice that distance when the conditions were right." Sarah nodded, filing away the information. She continued watching the alien ships, noting how they maintained perfect formation even as they navigated through the asteroid field. Their lead ship was slightly larger than the others, probably carrying the squadron commander. "Sir," Williams called out again, his voice tight with tension. "The lead ship is changing course. They're moving to get a better angle on our position." Captain Rodriguez closed his eyes for a moment, weighing their options. Sarah could see the burden of command on his shoulders, the weight of knowing that every decision he made could mean life or death for his crew. "All hands, prepare for combat," he announced over the ship's intercom. "Engineering, I need whatever power you can give me. Tactical, target their lead ship the moment we're exposed." The crew moved with practiced efficiency, but Sarah could feel the tension in the air. Everyone knew they were facing impossible odds. The Kethvar technology was superior, their numbers greater, and their position advantageous. This would likely be their last stand. As the enemy ships continued their approach, Sarah found herself thinking about her family back on Earth. Her parents had been so proud when she graduated from the Naval Academy, so hopeful that their daughter would help secure humanity's place among the stars. Now it seemed like she might never see them again. But then she remembered something her instructor had told her during sniper training. Distance isn't just about space, Chen, he had said. It's about time, patience, and understanding your enemy's psychology. Sometimes the impossible shot is just waiting for the right moment. She looked at the tactical display again, calculating distances and angles in her head. The lead Kethavar ship would have to expose itself completely to get a clear shot at the Defiant. For just a few seconds it would be vulnerable, its shields focused forward, its attention on the human ship. "Captain," she said, stepping forward. "I might have an idea." Rodriguez turned to her, his eyebrows raised. "I'm listening, Lieutenant." The Kethvar always put their squadron commanders in the lead ship. If we could take out their leader, the others might hesitate long enough for us to escape. That ship is over 3 kilometers away, Lieutenant. Our weapons don't have that kind of range. Sarah took a deep breath. "No, sir, but a sniper rifle might." The bridge fell silent. Kane stared at her like she had lost her mind. "Rookie, that's not just impossible, it's insane. You're talking about making a shot through vacuum, through an asteroid field at a moving target at a range no human has ever attempted." "The Kethvar won't expect it," Sarah replied. "They know our weapon capabilities. They think they're safe at that distance." Rodriguez studied her for a long moment. "Even if you could make the shot, what makes you think it would stop them?" Kethvar military doctrine emphasizes chain of command. Without their leader, the remaining ships will have to wait for new orders from their fleet command. That could give us the time we need to escape. The captain looked around at his senior officers, seeing doubt in their faces but also desperation. They were running out of options, and sometimes desperate times called for desperate measures. "Sergeant Kane," he said finally, "give Lieutenant Chen your rifle." Kane's cybernetic arm froze mid-motion as he processed the captain's order. "Sir, with all due respect, that rifle has been with me through 14 campaigns. It's precision calibrated to my neural patterns and—" "Sergeant," Rodriguez interrupted, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority, "give the lieutenant your weapon." The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as Kane reluctantly unstrapped his rifle from his back. The weapon was a thing of beauty. A custom-modified Mark 7 plasma rifle with enhanced targeting systems and a barrel extended for maximum accuracy. Sarah had only seen weapons like this in training manuals. "This isn't a toy, rookie," Kane muttered as he handed over the rifle. "One wrong calculation and you'll blow a hole in our own hull instead of theirs." Sarah accepted the weapon with reverence, feeling its weight in her hands. The rifle was heavier than the standard models she had trained with, but perfectly balanced. She could see why Kane was protective of it. This wasn't just a weapon. It was an instrument of precision warfare. "I'll need access to the observation deck's emergency airlock," she said, her mind already working through the logistics of the shot, "and someone to calculate the gravitational effects of the surrounding asteroids." "You want to go outside?" Commander Hayes asked incredulously. "Lieutenant, the radiation levels out there will cook you alive in minutes, even with a suit." "Not outside," Sarah replied, studying the ship's schematics on a nearby display. "The observation deck has an emergency firing port for exactly this kind of situation. I can make the shot from inside the ship, but I'll need the port open to avoid any interference from our hull plating." Captain Rodriguez nodded to his engineering officer. "Chief Morrison, can you give the lieutenant what she needs?" Morrison, a stocky woman with grease-stained coveralls, looked up from her damage control station. "The firing port's been sealed since we took that hit near the engine bay, but I can get it open. Just give me 5 minutes. Williams," Rodriguez continued, "work with Lieutenant Chen on those calculations. I want to know every variable that could affect this shot." As the crew scrambled to prepare, Sarah found herself studying the Kethvar ships through the observation port. They had moved closer now, less than 3 kilometers away, but they were still maintaining their cautious approach. The lead ship's commander was clearly experienced, taking no unnecessary risks. "Lieutenant," Williams called from his station, "I've got preliminary calculations. The gravitational field from the main asteroid will pull your shot about 2 meters to port over that distance. There's also a small debris field that might interfere with your targeting." Sarah nodded, absorbing the information. 3 kilometers was an enormous distance for any sniper shot, even in the controlled environment of space. On Earth, the longest confirmed sniper kill had been just over 3 kilometers, and that was with perfect conditions and a stationary target. Here she would be shooting at a moving spacecraft through a field of floating debris. "Ma'am," came Chief Morrison's voice over the intercom, Firing port is ready. You've got a clear line of sight, but I wouldn't recommend keeping it open for more than a few minutes. The radiation exposure will start affecting our systems. Sarah made her way to the observation deck, Kane following close behind. Despite his grumbling, she could see the professional interest in his eyes. He wanted to see if she could actually pull this off. The observation deck was a small compartment with reinforced windows designed for long-range reconnaissance. The emergency firing port was a circular opening about 30 centimeters wide, just enough for a rifle barrel. As Morrison had warned, Sarah could feel the radiation detectors on her uniform beginning to register increased exposure. "You've got one shot, rookie," Kane said as she positioned herself at the firing port. "Maybe two if you're lucky. After that, they'll know where the shot came from and they'll blow us to pieces." Sarah settled into a prone position, the rifle's stock pressed firmly against her shoulder. Through the weapon's advanced scope, she could see the Kethvar ships in perfect detail. The lead vessel was indeed larger than the others, its hull marked with the geometric patterns that indicated command rank among their species. The ship was moving slowly but steadily, following a search pattern as it looked for the hidden human vessel. Sarah would have to lead her target significantly, calculating not just where the ship was, but where it would be when her shot arrived. 3,200 meters, she whispered into her throat mic. Target moving at approximately 15 meters per second, bearing 270 relative. "Confirmed," Williams's voice crackled back. "Wind is negligible in vacuum, but watch for gravitational drift. You'll want to aim about 1.5 meters high and 2 meters to starboard to compensate." Sarah made the adjustments, feeling the rifle's targeting system sync with her neural implant. The advanced scope showed her a dozen different readouts: distance, relative velocity, atmospheric conditions, even the target's structural weak points based on known Kethvar ship designs. But for all the technology, this shot would ultimately come down to human skill and intuition. No computer could account for every variable, every tiny fluctuation that might affect the projectile's path over such an enormous distance. "Thermal bloom detected," Williams reported. "They're charging their weapons. You need to take the shot now, Lieutenant." Sarah felt her heart rate slow as her training took over. In sniper school, they had taught her to find that moment between heartbeats, that fraction of a second when her body was perfectly still. Time seemed to stretch as she watched the Kethvar ship through her scope. The alien vessel was turning now, bringing its main guns to bear on the asteroid that hid the Defiant. In seconds, it would have a clear shot, and the human ship's hiding place would become a death trap. Sarah breathed out slowly, letting half the air escape her lungs. Her finger found the trigger, and she applied the gentlest pressure, feeling the weapon's firing mechanism respond to her touch. The lead ship's bridge was clearly visible through her scope now. She could see the tall figures of Kethvar officers moving around inside, their forearms working at various control stations. The ship's commander would be standing at the center of the bridge, directing the search operation. "Any day now, rookie," Kane muttered, but his voice seemed to come from very far away. Sarah made one final micro-adjustment, accounting for the target's movement and the gravitational effects Williams had calculated. The Kethvar ship was almost in position to fire on the Defiant's hiding place. This was her moment. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle's discharge was nearly silent in the vacuum of space, just a faint vibration through the weapon's frame. The plasma bolt erupted from the barrel in a brilliant flash of blue-white energy, streaking across the void toward its distant target. For a moment that seemed to last forever, Sarah watched the shot travel through space. The plasma bolt was moving at nearly the speed of light, but over such a vast distance, she could actually track its progress through her scope. The projectile passed through a small debris field, its path unchanged by the tiny fragments of rock and ice. It curved slightly as it encountered the gravitational field of a nearby asteroid, following exactly the trajectory Williams had predicted. And then, 3.7 seconds after Sarah had pulled the trigger, the impossible happened. The plasma bolt struck the Kethvar command ship directly amidships, punching through its hull plating like a needle through fabric. For a split second, nothing seemed to happen. Then the alien ship exploded in a brilliant fireball that lit up the entire asteroid field. The silence on the observation deck was deafening. Kane stood frozen behind Sarah, his cybernetic arm whirring softly as his processors tried to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Through the scope, Sarah watched debris from the destroyed Kethvar command ship tumble slowly through space, each piece catching and reflecting the light from distant stars. Holy Mother of... Kane's voice trailed off as he stared at the expanding cloud of wreckage. Rookie, do you have any idea what you just did? Before Sarah could respond, Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm system. Observation deck, what's your status? We're reading a massive explosion at the target's coordinates. Sarah keyed her throat mic with a trembling hand. Direct hit, Captain. The lead ship is destroyed. A moment of stunned silence filled the comm channel before Rodriguez spoke again. Confirmed kill at 3.7 kilometers. Outstanding work, Lieutenant. Now get back to the bridge. We need to see how the remaining ships respond. As they made their way back through the ship's corridors, Kane kept shaking his head in disbelief. 30 years I've been carrying that rifle, he muttered. 30 years. And I never thought anyone could make a shot like that. Hell, I didn't think it was physically possible. The bridge was buzzing with activity when they arrived. On the main tactical display, Sarah could see the 2 remaining Kethvar ships had stopped their search pattern and were now holding position near the wreckage of their command vessel. Their formation had broken apart, and their movement seemed confused, almost random. They're scanning the debris field, reported Williams from his sensor station. Looks like they're trying to figure out what happened. Commander Hayes pulled up a detailed analysis of the shot on his console. I've been running the numbers, and this doesn't make sense. A plasma bolt should have dissipated over that distance. The energy decay alone should have made it ineffective against military-grade hull plating. Sarah studied the data, her tactical training kicking in. It's not about the energy, sir. It's about placement. I aimed for the ship's primary fusion reactor. A small breach at the right point can cause a cascade failure. You targeted their reactor from 3.5 kilometers away? Hayes asked incredulously. That's a target less than 2 meters wide on a moving ship, through an asteroid field. The Kethvar always place their reactors in the same location, Sarah explained. It's part of their standardized ship design. I studied their engineering patterns at the Academy. Captain Rodriguez joined their discussion, his expression showing a mixture of admiration and concern. Lieutenant, what you've accomplished here is remarkable, but we're not out of danger yet. Those 2 remaining ships are still capable of destroying us. As if summoned by his words, the tactical display showed the surviving Kethvar vessels beginning to move again. But instead of resuming their search, they were retreating, pulling back toward the edge of the asteroid field. Sir, Williams called out. I'm picking up transmissions from the Kethvar ships. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Can you translate it? Partially, sir. It sounds like they're calling for reinforcements. They're also... Wait, this is strange. They're reporting that they're under attack by a previously unknown human weapon system. Rodriguez frowned. Unknown weapon system? What are they talking about? Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the implications. Captain, they don't know it was a sniper shot. From their perspective, we just destroyed their command ship with a weapon that has a range and accuracy far beyond anything in our known arsenal. You mean they think we have some kind of super weapon? That's exactly what I mean, sir. To them, it would look like we fired some kind of precision-guided missile or energy beam. They have no frame of reference for long-range sniping. Hayes was studying the tactical display with growing excitement. If that's true, then they're not just retreating because they lost their commander. They're retreating because they think they're facing a superior technology. The bridge crew watched as the 2 Kethvar ships continued their withdrawal, maintaining maximum distance while still keeping the human ship under surveillance. It was clear they were waiting for orders from their fleet command, but they were also being extremely cautious about their approach. This could change everything, Rodriguez said quietly. If the Kethvar think we have weapons capable of precision strikes at extreme range, it could alter the entire balance of power in this sector. Sarah was beginning to understand the broader implications of what she had done. The Kethvar had been aggressive toward human expansion because they believed their technology was superior. But now, from their perspective, humanity had just demonstrated a weapons capability that exceeded their own. Sir, she said carefully, we need to be smart about how we handle this. If we let them believe we have this kind of technology, it could prevent future conflicts. But if they figure out it was just a lucky shot with a conventional rifle, they'll be back with overwhelming force, Rodriguez finished. Williams, any word from Fleet Command? Negative, sir. We're still too deep in the asteroid field to establish reliable communications with Earth or the nearest naval base. What about our engines? Chief Morrison's voice came over the intercom from engineering. I can give you half power in about 10 minutes, Captain. But if we're going to move, we need to do it soon. The radiation from staying hidden in this asteroid field is starting to affect our systems. Rodriguez weighed their options. The Kethvar ships were maintaining their distance, but they were also blocking the most direct escape route. If the human ship tried to run, they would have to expose themselves to enemy fire. But if they stayed hidden much longer, their own systems would start failing. Lieutenant Chen, the captain said, you've bought us some time with that shot, but I need to know, can you do it again? Sarah looked through the observation port at the distant enemy ships. They were moving now, following unpredictable patterns that would make targeting extremely difficult. They had also increased their distance, putting themselves well beyond even the theoretical maximum range of her rifle. Not at that range, sir, she admitted, and they're not holding steady courses anymore. They've learned to be cautious. Then we need to use the advantage you've given us, Rodriguez decided. Morrison, get me those engines. Hayes, plot a course that takes us through the densest part of the asteroid field. We're going to make them think we're not afraid of a fight. Sir, Hayes protested, if we go deeper into the field, we'll be trapped if they decide to pursue. That's the point, Commander. From their perspective, we just demonstrated that we can kill them at will from extreme range. If we act like we're not afraid of them, it reinforces their belief that we have superior weapons. Sarah watched as the crew implemented the captain's plan. It was a dangerous gamble, betting everything on the Kethvar's misinterpretation of her sniper shot. But it was also brilliant in its simplicity. Sometimes the best weapon wasn't technology or firepower, it was psychology. As the Defiance engines came online and the ship began to move deeper into the asteroid field, Sarah found herself thinking about the broader implications of what had happened. One shot from a conventional rifle had potentially changed the course of human-alien relations in this sector. But she also knew that their deception wouldn't last forever. Eventually, the Kethvar would figure out what had really happened. When that day came, humanity would need to be ready with real technological advantages, not just the illusion of them. For now, though, they had breathing room. And sometimes, in the vast complexity of interstellar politics, breathing room was all you needed to find a real solution to an impossible problem. The two remaining Kethvar ships continued to shadow them at a respectful distance as the Defiant disappeared deeper into the asteroid field, both sides playing a careful game of bluff and counter-bluff among the floating rocks. 3 hours into their journey through the asteroid field, the UES Defiant had still not encountered any pursuit from the remaining Kethvar ships. Captain Rodriguez paced the bridge like a caged animal, his eyes constantly flicking between the tactical display and the long-range sensors. The silence from their pursuers was almost more unnerving than open hostility would have been. They're still out there, Williams reported from his sensor station, maintaining position at the edge of the field, but they haven't made any move to follow us. What's the status on our communications array? Rodriguez asked. Still intermittent, sir, replied Ensign Patterson from communications. The asteroid field is causing too much interference for reliable long-range transmission. We might be able to get a message through in bursts, but it would take hours to send anything substantial. Sarah stood at one of the auxiliary stations, studying the star charts and trying to understand the Kethvar's strategy. Their behavior didn't match any of the tactical profiles she had studied at the academy. Known for their aggressive pursuit tactics, the aliens were instead choosing to hang back and observe. They're waiting for something, she said aloud, drawing the attention of the senior officers. What makes you say that, Lieutenant? Rodriguez asked. Look at their positioning. Sarah brought up the tactical display on the main screen. They're not trying to cut off our escape routes or box us in. They're maintaining a surveillance pattern like they're gathering intelligence. Commander Hayes nodded slowly. She's right. This isn't standard Kethvar battle doctrine. They should either be pressing their attack or withdrawing completely. So what are they waiting for? Rodriguez wondered. The answer came 20 minutes later when Williams suddenly straightened at his console. Captain, I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures approaching the edge of the system. 6 ships, possibly more. Rodriguez felt his stomach drop. Kethvar? Confirmed, sir. Large vessels, probably cruiser class or above. ETA approximately 40 minutes. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The surviving Kethvar ships hadn't been waiting out of caution. They had been calling for reinforcements. Now a significant enemy force was approaching, and the Defiant was trapped deep in an asteroid field with damaged engines and limited firepower. Options? Rodriguez asked his senior staff. We could try to run, Hayes suggested. Push the engines to maximum and attempt to break free before the reinforcements arrive. Chief Morrison's voice crackled through the intercom. Captain, I wouldn't recommend that. The engines are holding together, but they're running hot. If we push them too hard, we might lose propulsion entirely. What about fighting our way out? Rodriguez asked, though he already knew the answer. 6-1 odds, sir, Hayes replied grimly, and that's assuming the new arrivals are the same class as the ships we've already encountered. If they've brought capital ships, and he didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone on the bridge understood that the Defiant, even at full strength, would be no match for a Kethvar fleet. Sarah found herself staring at the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. The situation seemed hopeless, but something about the enemy's behavior still bothered her. Why maintain such a cautious distance? Why call for so many reinforcements to deal with a single damaged human ship? Captain, she said suddenly, what if their caution is actually an opportunity? Explain. They've called for 6 ships to deal with us. That's massive overkill for a single frigate, even if they think we have superior weapons. It suggests they're genuinely afraid of engaging us directly. Rodriguez considered this. You think we can use their fear against them? Maybe, but we need to understand what they're really afraid of. Sarah pulled up the sensor logs from her sniper shot. They saw their command ship destroyed instantly from extreme range. From their perspective, we have a weapon that can eliminate any ship at will, anywhere in the system. But that's not true, Hayes pointed out. You made one incredible shot under perfect conditions. It's not something we can replicate reliably. They don't know that, Sarah replied. And if we play this right, we might not have to. She began working at her console, pulling up communications protocols and translation matrices. An idea was forming in her mind. Dangerous and desperate, but possibly their only chance. Captain, I need permission to attempt direct communication with the Kethvar fleet. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. Lieutenant, diplomatic contact with hostile aliens is way above your pay grade. I'm not talking about diplomacy, sir. I'm talking about psychological warfare. Before anyone could object, Sarah had opened a channel on the Kethvar military frequency. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as she began speaking in careful, measured tones. Kethvar vessels, this is Lieutenant Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Defiant. You have witnessed the capabilities of human long-range weapon systems. Your command ship was eliminated with a single shot from a distance you believe to be safe. She paused, letting the translation software convert her words into the complex harmonic patterns of Kethvar communication. On the tactical display, they could see the alien ships reacting to the transmission, their formation tightening as they processed the message. We are prepared to demonstrate these capabilities again if necessary, Sarah continued. However, Earth Command prefers to resolve conflicts through negotiation rather than the total elimination of enemy forces. Lieutenant, Rodriguez hissed, what are you doing? Sarah held up a hand asking for silence as she continued the transmission. We propose a temporary ceasefire while terms can be negotiated. In exchange, we will refrain from deploying our long-range elimination protocol against your incoming reinforcements. The comm channel crackled with static as the Kethvar ships began transmitting rapid bursts of communication to each other. The translation software could only catch fragments, but the tone seemed to be one of heated debate. They're arguing, Williams reported. I'm picking up references to unknown human weapons and acceptable losses and... Wait, they're also mentioning something about honor protocols. Hayes looked confused. Honor protocols? The Kethvar don't typically concern themselves with honor in battle. They do when they think they're outmatched, Sarah replied. I studied their military history at the academy. When facing superior technology, Kethvar commanders are actually required, by their own regulations, to seek terms rather than waste ships and crew in hopeless battles. The tactical display showed the incoming reinforcements had slowed their approach, dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, rather than rushing directly to engage. It was a small sign, but it suggested that Sarah's gamble might be working. Sir, Patterson called from communications. We're receiving a response from the Kethvar fleet. The bridge speakers filled with the harmonic tones of alien speech, followed by the mechanical voice of the translation software. Human vessel, we acknowledge your capabilities. Fleet Commander Zexthal wishes to discuss terms of engagement. Will you guarantee safe passage for a diplomatic shuttle? Rodriguez looked around at his crew, seeing a mixture of hope and disbelief on their faces. Somehow, Sarah's desperate bluff had opened a door that might lead to survival. Tell them we accept, Rodriguez ordered. And Lieutenant Chen, you'll be handling the negotiations. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. She had bought them time with her rifle, and now she had bought them a chance with her words. But the hardest part was yet to come. She would have to convince an alien commander that humanity possessed weapons they didn't actually have, while negotiating terms that might determine the future of human expansion in this sector. As the Kethvar diplomatic shuttle detached from one of the distant ships and began its approach to the asteroid field, Sarah realized that the shot she had made was only the beginning. The real test of her abilities was about to begin. The Kethvar diplomatic shuttle was unlike anything Sarah had seen before. Where human spacecraft were built for efficiency and function, the alien vessel seemed to flow through space like a living thing. Its hull was a deep purple that shifted to blue as it caught the light from distant stars, and its movement through the asteroid field was so graceful it seemed to dance between the floating rocks. Approaching vessel, you are cleared for docking bay 2, Patterson announced over the comm. Maintain current approach vector and reduce speed to 5 meters per second. Sarah stood in the ship's small conference room, trying to calm her nerves as she waited for the aliens to board. Captain Rodriguez had insisted that Commander Hayes and Sergeant Kane accompany her to the meeting, but everyone understood that she would be doing most of the talking. Remember, Rodriguez had told her before taking his position back on the bridge, they think we have some kind of superweapon. Don't contradict that belief, but don't make any claims we can't back up either. Walk the line carefully. The ship's artificial gravity fluctuated slightly as the alien shuttle attached to their docking port. Sarah could hear the hiss of atmosphere equalizing and the mechanical sounds of airlocks engaging, then footsteps in the corridor but not the heavy boots of human crew members. These were different, lighter but with an odd clicking quality that suggested clawed feet. The conference room door slid open, and Sarah got her first close look at a living Kethvar. Fleet Commander Zexthal was tall, nearly 3 meters in height, with forearms that moved independently of each other. His body was covered in what looked like natural armor plating, a chitinous exoskeleton that gleamed with an oily iridescence. His head was roughly triangular, dominated by large compound eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. 2 other Kethvar followed him into the room, smaller than their commander but still imposing. All 3 aliens wore what appeared to be military insignia, geometric patterns etched into their natural armor in gold and silver. I am Fleet Commander Zexthal of the Kethvar Defense Force, the leader announced in perfect English, his voice carrying harmonic undertones that the translation software had missed. I speak for the fleet that approaches your position. Sarah stood and inclined her head in what she hoped was an appropriate greeting. I am Lieutenant Sarah Chen, representing the United Earthship Defiant and the interests of humanity in this sector. The alien commander's compound eyes fixed on her with unsettling intensity. You are young for one who commands such devastating weapons, human. Age and experience don't always correlate, Commander, Sarah replied carefully. Sometimes fresh perspective can reveal possibilities that experience overlooks. Zexthal's head tilted in what might have been acknowledgement. Indeed. Your demonstration earlier was illuminating. We have analyzed the destruction of the Velkaran and found it most instructive. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. The aliens had been studying the wreckage of their destroyed ship. How much had they been able to determine about the actual cause of the explosion? The precision was remarkable. One of the other Kethvar spoke, his voice higher pitched than his commander's. A single point of impact that caused catastrophic cascade failure. Such accuracy suggests targeting systems far beyond what we believed humans possessed. Our weapons technology has advanced significantly in recent years, Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. It wasn't technically a lie since human weapons had indeed improved, just not to the extent the aliens believed. Yes, we are beginning to understand this, Zexthal replied. Tell me, Lieutenant Chen, what is the maximum effective range of your elimination protocol? Sarah felt Commander Hayes tense beside her. This was dangerous territory. If she claimed too much, they might test her bluff. If she claimed too little, they might not take the threat seriously. That depends on various factors, she said carefully. Environmental conditions, target characteristics, available power levels. Under optimal conditions, we can engage targets at considerable distances. Considerable distances, Zexthul repeated, his compound eyes reflecting the conference room's lights like faceted jewels. Your ship eliminated the Velkaron from 3.7 kilometers. In our military doctrine, this is considered point-blank range for capital ship weapons, yet you achieved precision destruction with what appeared to be a single projectile. Sarah's mind raced. The aliens were clearly trying to understand the nature of humanity's supposed superweapon. She needed to give them enough information to maintain their respect without revealing the truth. The weapon we employed was designed for surgical strikes against specific targets, she said. It's particularly effective against fusion reactors and other critical systems. This caused immediate agitation among the three aliens. Their forearms began moving in rapid, complex gestures that Sarah recognized as a form of nonverbal communication. The translation software couldn't interpret the movements, but their emotional content was clear enough. You specifically targeted our reactor? Zexthul asked, his harmonic voice carrying notes that sounded almost like alarm. It seemed the most efficient approach, Sarah replied. Quick, clean, with minimal collateral damage to other vessels in the area. The aliens exchanged more rapid gestures. Sarah began to realize that her casual mention of targeting the reactor had revealed something significant about human capabilities from their perspective. Apparently, precision strikes against specific ship systems were not standard practice in Kethvar warfare. Most efficient, Zexthul mused. Yes, I begin to see the tactical implications. Tell me, how many ships can your vessel engage simultaneously with this surgical approach? Another dangerous question. Sarah looked at Commander Hayes, hoping for guidance, but his expression told her she was on her own. That would depend on tactical considerations, she said. Range, positioning, available targeting data. Why do you ask? Because, Lieutenant Chen, I have 6 heavy cruisers approaching this system, each carrying enough firepower to reduce this asteroid field to dust. If your vessel can eliminate multiple targets simultaneously, it changes the nature of our tactical situation considerably. Sarah felt sweat beading on her forehead despite the cool temperature of the conference room. The alien commander was probing for specific information about human capabilities, and her answers could determine whether they would face negotiation or annihilation. Fleet Commander, she said, deciding to take a different approach. Perhaps we should discuss what we both hope to achieve here. Your ships were conducting mining operations in this system. Our reconnaissance mission discovered those operations. Neither of us came here looking for a fight. True, Zexthul acknowledged. But now that we have encountered each other, the situation has changed. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that alter the strategic balance in this sector. My government will want to understand the implications. And what implications are you most concerned about? Sarah asked. The Kethvar have held technological superiority in this region for over 2 centuries, Zexthul explained. Our expansion has proceeded unopposed because no other species possessed weapons that could threaten our fleets effectively. If humanity has developed targeting systems capable of precision strikes at extreme range, he didn't finish the sentence, but Sarah understood. The aliens weren't just worried about losing this particular engagement. They were worried about losing their entire strategic advantage in the sector. Technology is only one factor in determining conflict outcomes, Sarah said carefully. Intent and objectives matter more. Humanity has no desire to challenge Kethvar territory or threaten your people. Then why are you here? We're exploring, same as you are. The galaxy is vast enough for multiple species to coexist without constant conflict. Zexthul's compound eyes fixed on her again. Coexistence requires mutual respect, Lieutenant. Your demonstration earlier has certainly earned our respect. But respect must be reciprocal. Sarah sensed an opportunity. What would demonstrate humanity's respect for the Kethvar? Withdrawal from this system would be a start. Recognition of our mining claims here. Perhaps an agreement on territorial boundaries. That might be possible, Sarah said, though she had no authority to make such agreements. But it would require guarantees from your side as well. Humanity can't accept unprovoked attacks on our vessels, and the attack on your ship was prompted by your intrusion into a claimed system. One of the other Kethvar interjected, a system you hadn't announced your claim to. Commander Hayes spoke up for the first time. Standard galactic protocol requires public declaration of territorial claims. The aliens exchanged more rapid gestures. Sarah could see that this was becoming a complex diplomatic issue rather than a simple military confrontation, which was exactly what she had hoped for. Perhaps, Zexthul said slowly, there is room for negotiation here. But first I must ask a direct question, Lieutenant Chen. If negotiations fail and my fleet is forced to engage your vessel, what casualties can we expect? Sarah met his compound gaze steadily. Commander, I hope that question remains hypothetical. Neither of us wants to find out the answer. The alien commander's posture shifted slightly, and Sarah got the impression he was reassessing the situation once again. Her refusal to give specific news about human weapons capabilities had probably told him as much as any direct answer would have. The negotiations continued for another 2 hours, with both sides carefully dancing around the real issues while trying to gain advantage. Sarah found herself growing more confident as the discussion progressed, realizing that the Kethvar were genuinely concerned about humanity's apparent technological breakthrough. We propose a temporary ceasefire while both our governments evaluate the situation, Zexthul finally announced. Your ship will be permitted to withdraw from this system unmolested. In exchange, humanity will acknowledge Kethvar mining rights here and agree to formal territorial discussions. Sarah looked at Commander Hayes, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was far better than the annihilation they had been facing an hour earlier. Those terms seem acceptable in principle, Sarah replied. However, I'll need to consult with my command structure before making any formal agreements. Of course, military officers cannot make binding territorial commitments. Zexthul's forearms moved in what Sarah was beginning to recognize as a gesture of understanding. How long do you require for consultation? 24 hours should be sufficient, Sarah said, hoping that would give them enough time to escape the asteroid field and re-establish communications with Earth. Agreed. But Lieutenant Chen, I must warn you that my government will expect verification of humanity's new weapons capabilities. They will want to understand exactly what they are dealing with. Sarah felt her stomach clench. This was the inevitable moment she had been dreading. Eventually, the Kethvar would want proof that humans actually possessed the super weapons they believed in. What kind of verification? She asked carefully. Demonstration, perhaps. Under controlled conditions with observers present. Zexthul's compound eyes seemed to bore into her soul. Surely you understand our need for accurate intelligence about potential threats. I understand your position, Sarah replied. But you must also understand that humanity cannot reveal all of its military capabilities to a potential adversary. Some technologies must remain classified. The alien commander's head tilted again. Even to ensure peace between our species? Especially to ensure peace. Mystery can be more effective than revelation in preventing conflicts. It was a calculated risk, but Sarah hoped that the philosophical nature of her response would resonate with the Kethvar military mindset. From her studies, she knew that their culture valued strategic thinking and respected opponents who demonstrated tactical sophistication. Interesting perspective, Zexthul mused. You suggest that uncertainty about your capabilities serves as a deterrent. Among other things, yes. The three aliens engaged in another rapid exchange of gestural communication. Sarah wished she could understand what they were saying, but their body language suggested serious consideration of her words. Very well, Zexthul said finally. We will report to our command that humanity has demonstrated advanced weapons technology, but maintains operational security regarding specific capabilities. This should be sufficient for initial government evaluation. Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had bought more time, perhaps enough to develop a real solution to the underlying problem. Excellent. Is there anything else we need to discuss before you return to your fleet? Yes. One final question, Lieutenant Chen. The shot that destroyed the Velkaran required exceptional skill, regardless of the technology involved. Who was the operator? Sarah felt her heart hammering again. This was another test, and she had to decide how much truth to reveal. The operator was specially trained for long-range precision strikes, she said finally, part of a new military program designed to maximize the effectiveness of our advanced targeting systems. I see. And this operator, would they be available for future diplomatic demonstrations if necessary? The question hung in the air like a blade. Sarah realized that Zexthul was asking if she herself was the mysterious super sniper, without stating it directly. Her answer could determine how the aliens perceived humanity's military capabilities going forward. The operators in our program are military assets, she replied carefully. Their deployment is determined by strategic necessity and command discretion. Of course, military assets must be protected. Zexthal stood, his impressive height making the conference room seem smaller. We have reached an understanding, Lieutenant Chen. The ceasefire will begin immediately, and both fleets will withdraw to minimum safe distances while diplomatic channels are established. As the aliens prepared to leave, Zexthal paused at the door and looked back at Sarah. You have given us much to consider, young human. Your species continues to surprise us. Surprise can be valuable in maintaining peace, Commander. Indeed it can, until we meet again. The Kethvar delegation left as gracefully as they had arrived, their footsteps clicking down the corridor toward their waiting shuttle. Sarah sank into her chair, feeling the weight of exhaustion settling on her shoulders. Outstanding work, Lieutenant, Commander Hayes said quietly. You may have just prevented a war, or postponed one, Sarah replied. They're going to want proof eventually, real proof that we have the weapons they think we have. That's a problem for the diplomatic corps and the research divisions, Hayes said. Right now, we need to focus on getting home alive. As they made their way back to the bridge, Sarah found herself thinking about the broader implications of what had happened. Her single sniper shot had created a fiction that humanity now had to live up to. The Kethvar believed that humans possessed weapons capable of precision strikes at impossible ranges, and that belief had changed the strategic balance in the sector. But beliefs based on fiction were unstable. Eventually, the truth would come out, and when it did, humanity would need to be ready with real technological advantages to back up the reputation she had accidentally created. Captain Rodriguez met them as they entered the bridge. Status report? Ceasefire agreed, Hayes replied. 24 hours to establish formal diplomatic channels, then both fleets withdraw while governments negotiate territorial agreements. And they bought our story about advanced weapons? Sarah nodded. For now. But Commander, we need to get word to Earth immediately. The research divisions need to start working on actual long-range precision weapons, because eventually the Kethvar are going to want a demonstration we can't fake. Rodriguez studied the tactical display, where the alien ships were already beginning to pull back to safer distances. Sometimes the best victories create the biggest problems. Good work, all of you. Now let's get out of this asteroid field before something else goes wrong. As the Defiant began its careful navigation out of the rock field, Sarah remained at her station, watching the Kethvar ships maintain their respectful distance. She had bought humanity time and space with her rifle and her words. But she knew that the real challenge was just beginning. Somewhere in the research laboratories of Earth, scientists would now have to turn fiction into reality. They would have to create the weapons that Sarah had convinced the aliens already existed, and until they succeeded, the fragile peace between species would rest on the memory of one impossible shot, fired by a rookie sniper in the depths of space. 6 months later, Lieutenant Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the UES Titan, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. Through the reinforced windows, she could see the diplomatic station where human and Kethvar representatives were finalizing the territorial agreements that had grown out of her desperate gamble in the asteroid field. The past half-year had been a whirlwind of debriefings, promotions, and intensive training. Sarah now wore the insignia of a full lieutenant, and her official title was Senior Weapons Systems Specialist for the newly formed Human Defense Initiative. What that really meant was that she had become the face of humanity's supposed superweapon program. Nervous? Asked Captain Rodriguez, who had joined her at the observation window. He now commanded the Titan, having been promoted after the successful resolution of the Kethvar crisis. Terrified, Sarah admitted. Today's demonstration could determine whether we have peace or war for the next century. Below them, the diplomatic station buzzed with activity. Representatives from 6 different species had gathered to witness humanity's formal demonstration of its long-range precision weapons. The Kethvar had insisted on the demonstration as part of the territorial negotiations, and several other species had requested observer status. The irony wasn't lost on Sarah that she was about to demonstrate weapons that hadn't existed when she made her original shot. The research divisions had worked frantically to develop actual long-range precision systems, using her sniper shot as both inspiration and requirement. The result was a hybrid system that combined human marksmanship with advanced targeting computers and specially designed projectiles. "The new system is impressive," Rodriguez said, as if reading her thoughts. "The targeting AI can calculate firing solutions that would be impossible for any human to compute manually. But it still requires a human operator for the final shot," Sarah replied. "The computers can do the math, but they can't make the intuitive adjustments that sometimes make the difference between a hit and a miss." It was true. The weapons scientists had discovered that fully automated systems, while accurate, lacked the adaptability that made human snipers effective. The new hybrid approach used computers to handle the complex calculations while leaving the final firing decision to human judgment. "Target vessel is in position," announced Commander Hayes over the comm system. He was serving as Sarah's spotter for today's demonstration, coordinating between the shooting platform and the target zone. Sarah made her way to the firing chamber, a specialized compartment designed specifically for long-range precision shots. The new rifle was a marvel of engineering, incorporating targeting computers, environmental sensors, and a projectile acceleration system that could drive specially designed rounds to velocities approaching 10% of light speed. The target was a decommissioned Kethvar cargo vessel, positioned at a distance of 15 kilometers from the Titan. It was nearly 5 times the range of her original shot, chosen specifically to demonstrate that humanity's weapons capabilities had indeed advanced beyond what the aliens had witnessed in the asteroid field. "All stations report ready," Hayes announced. "Diplomatic observers are in position, recording equipment is active, and the target zone is clear of traffic." Sarah settled into the firing position, feeling the familiar weight of a rifle against her shoulder. Despite all the advanced technology, the basic fundamentals of marksmanship remained the same: breath control, trigger discipline, and the ability to find that perfect moment between heartbeats when everything aligned. The targeting system displayed a wealth of information on her scope: range, wind conditions, gravitational effects, target movement, and dozens of other variables. But Sarah had learned to process all of that data almost subconsciously, letting her training and instincts guide the final shot. "Lieutenant Chen, you are cleared to engage when ready," came Captain Rodriguez's voice over the comm. Sarah breathed out slowly, letting half the air escape her lungs. Through her scope, she could see the target vessel clearly, its hull gleaming in the light of the nearby star. The ship was stationary, making this shot significantly easier than her first encounter with the Kethvar. But the extreme range created its own challenges. The targeting computer showed a green indicator, signaling that all calculations were complete and the firing solution was optimal. But Sarah waited another moment, feeling for that perfect instant when everything felt right. She squeezed the trigger. The projectile erupted from the rifle in a brilliant flash of energy, accelerated to incredible velocity by the weapon's magnetic acceleration system. Unlike her original plasma shot, this projectile was a solid round designed to maintain coherence over extreme distances. Through her scope, Sarah tracked the round's path across the void. At such high velocity, the flight time was only a few seconds, but it seemed like an eternity as representatives from multiple species watched to see if humanity's claimed capabilities were real. The projectile struck the target vessel precisely amidships, punching through the hull and exiting the other side in a shower of debris. But this time, instead of an explosion, the ship simply went dark as its power systems failed. The shot had been calculated to disable rather than destroy, demonstrating both accuracy and restraint. "Direct hit," Hayes reported. "Target vessel disabled as planned. All systems show normal operation." The comm system crackled with transmissions from the diplomatic station as observers from various species discussed what they had witnessed. Sarah could hear fragments of conversation in multiple languages, but the tone seemed to be one of impressed acknowledgement rather than skepticism. "Outstanding work, Lieutenant," Rodriguez said as Sarah made her way back to the observation deck. "I think we've made our point." Through the windows, Sarah could see the diplomatic station erupting in activity. The formal demonstration had accomplished exactly what humanity needed. It had proved that their claimed capabilities were real, while also showing that these weapons could be used with precision and restraint. Fleet Commander Zexthol's response came through the communication system an hour later. "An impressive demonstration, Lieutenant Chen. Your species has indeed developed remarkable capabilities since our first encounter. Thank you, Commander, Sarah replied over the open channel. We hope this demonstration helps facilitate peaceful relations between our species. I believe it will. The Kethvar Council has authorized me to proceed with the territorial agreements as previously negotiated. We look forward to a stable peace with humanity. As the diplomatic proceedings continued over the following days, Sarah found herself reflecting on the strange path that had brought her to this point. 6 months ago, she had been a rookie on her second mission, making a desperate shot to save her ship. Now she was the public face of humanity's most advanced weapons program, and her actions had helped establish humanity as a major power in the sector. But perhaps most importantly, she had learned that sometimes the most effective weapon wasn't technology or firepower. It was the psychology of deterrence, the ability to make potential enemies believe that conflict would be too costly to contemplate. The territorial agreements were signed 3 days later, establishing formal boundaries between human and Kethvar space, while creating frameworks for peaceful expansion by both species. Other alien species also signed non-aggression pacts with humanity, recognizing the strategic balance that had emerged. As the Titan prepared to depart the diplomatic station, Sarah stood once more at the observation window, watching the alien ships begin their journey home. The Kethvar vessels moved with their characteristic grace, but now they departed as allies rather than enemies. Proud of what you've accomplished? Rodriguez asked, joining her at the window. Grateful, Sarah replied. Grateful that a single shot fired in desperation became the foundation for peace instead of war. That shot didn't create peace by itself, Rodriguez pointed out. It created an opportunity, and you had the wisdom and courage to turn that opportunity into something meaningful. Sarah nodded, understanding the truth in his words. The shot had been just the beginning. The real achievement had been everything that came after. The negotiations, the research, the demonstrations, and the careful diplomatic work that had transformed a moment of violence into a lasting peace. As the Titan jumped to hyperspace, beginning its journey back to Earth, Sarah knew that her days as a rookie were behind her. She had become something more than just a sniper or a weapons specialist. She had become a symbol of humanity's ability to turn desperate situations into opportunities for growth and peace. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but humanity now had a place in it, earned through skill, courage, and the wisdom to know when to fight and when to negotiate. And it had all started with one impossible shot, fired by a rookie who refused to accept that some things couldn't be done. In the depths of space, the story of humanity's emergence as a galactic power would be told and retold, but those who lived it knew the truth. Sometimes the most important victories were won not through superior firepower, but through the courage to reach for the impossible and the wisdom to turn accidental advantages into lasting peace.